Hey, this is Ramon, channel it's Alpha 4, and this is going to be a very quick review of Neuromancer. Let me first give you the good. It's never boring. It has a very interesting premise. It forces you to use your imagination to fill in the gaps. Like, there's a lot of nostalgia and remembering and backstory that's never explained. There's a lot of setting that's never explained. So you kind of have to use your own imagination to make the picture whole. And the setting is very interesting. So what's bad about it? The dialogue is terrible. There's too much meaningless lingo. It uses gibberish disguised as tech jargon. Names and designation are needlessly overcomplicated, as if the writer couldn't decide what to call something or name a character, so he went with every option he thought of. Also, he adds a new hook or a mystery or a twist or a revelation at almost every turn of the page, making it impossible to follow in a single read-through. So the first 3 chapters and the last 3 chapters of Neuromancer are where I think the book shines the most and where it shows its best creativity and novelty. And again, I'm really going to stress that this book has a lot of novelty in it. But once you get into the weeds, into the heart of this overgrown jungle, it becomes nearly impossible to navigate. At first, I thought it was just me and that I was missing something. But then I did some research to prep for this review and found that even those who love this novel have trouble following it. Even after reading a summary of this book, I still found it very overcluttered and overstuffed with ideas and concepts. The worst aspects for me were the bad dialogue, the overcomplicated naming conventions, and worst of all were the jump cuts. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep had a little bit of this, but it also had like narrative bleed through where like it was kind of dreamscape-like. Here, it's not dreamscape. It's just like you're in one scene and then suddenly you're in another scene and then you're in another scene and then you're in a flashback, but then you're in the present and then you're in the, like, I don't know, some other reality, but that ends up being the actual story, and then you have a new character that just shows up. It's just a jumbled mess. But with that being said, there is a diamond under all that rough. The Matrix, Westworld, the HBO series, Floor 13 or 13th Floor, and countless classic animes, as well as many other popular fictions, are each in their own way reinterpretations of this book, as is evident by its later imitators. By simplifying the story and switching out the jargon for real world terminology, those stories, those fictions that are ripping off this fiction end up becoming classics in themselves. And all you have to do is trim down some of the many characters that he adds in for seemingly no reason. I watched a bunch of reviews, forward and the afterword of his book. He was worried that the reader was going to lose interest, so every page he'd try and introduce something new to keep them hooked, in. So he just kind of like blah, just threw everything up and just kind of, he didn't even take it seriously. He wanted it to be kind of a pulpy, gnarly novel. He wasn't trying to make high art. So when I say it's not high art, I'm not insulting him. He was trying to be a dime novel or just, you know, a newsstand paperback. He wasn't trying to make high art. He wasn't trying to make literature. He was trying to make a buck, and he thought his stuff was interesting, but he didn't think his stuff was that good. And he rewrote it and reworked it so much because he didn't want it to be like Blade Runner. There's a lot in here that is good, but all the ideas are a jumbled mess. And I've seen reviews of people who have read the Sprawl series, which this is the first installation of, and none of those people seem happy about reading the Sprawl series. It seems like every iteration of the story repeats itself and it gets a little worse and more jumbled. I know that a lot of people love this book, and in fact I have a friend named Joey who absolutely loves it, and he was defending it to me. I don't know, man. It's not a terrible book. I'm already moving on to the next pillar in the cyberpunk genre, and that's I'm on to Hardwired, and just the beginning, the first 5 minutes, the first 5 pages, is so much smoother and so much easier to comprehend and to really get a picture of. Neuromancer's author just has too much going on in his mind, in the book. He sets up this whole thing where the character is semi-redeemed and can't do drugs anymore, only to have the character find a way to do drugs almost immediately. Like, it's so, like, what was the point of that? The story itself goes off in so many directions, and you get backstories to characters who seemingly don't matter by the end of the story. That it's a little weird. It's a little complicated. It's a little overcomplicated. It's not the best stuff in the world. If you like really bad sci-fi, like, I'm a huge fan of B movies. I'm a huge fan of 90s sci-fi and 80s sci-fi. So, like, if you like that kind of stuff, then you can feel right at home in this novel. You're not going to hate it. But if you're looking for something more, if you're looking for something like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, if you're looking for something that quality, this is not that novel. It's just not. Technically, even the name of the book is actually a villain that you don't meet till the end. I'd give this book a 3 out of 5. It's not the worst book I've ever read, but it's definitely not the best. It's never boring, but it's a mess, man. It's a jumbled mess. And the dialogue is just terrible. And again, I'm not saying the plot is bad. I mean, this story is The Matrix. This story is Ghost in the Shell. So, like, this is not a terrible book. The ideas in it are interesting, and if you simply change the naming conventions, where, like, I mean, cat mother and stuff like that, like, it's just, ugh. Just call it cat or call it mother or whatever. You don't have to have, like, flaming iron fist or whatever. It's just too much. You just call it flaming fist, call it iron fist. Stop being so cheesy. There's a lot of cheese in this book. A lot of cheese. But, you know, the bad dialogue aside, it was fun. Like I said, if I was between 13 and 15, I think this was probably one of the greatest books of all time. Reading it as a 40-year-old adult, as someone who's read some really great books, I mean, the Daughter and the Smoking Bone trilogy comes to mind. This is nowhere near that kind of quality. It's nowhere near as good as Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. It just doesn't reach those levels, but it's not trying to. So read it if you want. I'm going to move on to Hardwired, and see you all in the next video.